So anyways, let's start our discussion. Let me share a PowerPoint with you guys. Okay, can you guys see the PowerPoint on your screens now? Anyone, please let me know. आपको तो PowerPoint नजर आ रही है अपनी स्क्रीन पे? All right.
Yes, नजर आ रही है.
Okay, that's great. So in last class, we had started our discussion about code of ethics, and we covered some part of code of ethics in last class. Today we will continue that discussion. So initially I will give you a quick review of what we discussed in last class, and then we will continue. We said that different organizations have developed these codes of ethics, but we will be talking about only two. One is the Code of Ethics by American Society of Civil Engineers, and this is the Code of Ethics by Pakistan Engineering Council. The codes of ethics by both these organizations are already uploaded on our OneDrive link, and I have chosen ASCE to be discussed in class because ASCE is a relatively shorter one, and we will not be going into the detail of PEC code of ethics because most of the part of these codes have is overlapping. So if we discuss one of these two, you guys will be easily able to understand the other one. So we'll just talk about ASCE. And further, ASCE has two versions of codes of ethics. I have uploaded the older version as well as the newer version, but we will be discussing the newer version. And as far as the PEC codes of ethics is concerned, they have basically two documents. One is code of ethics and other is code of conduct. Code of ethics is basically a collection of a bunch of verses from the Holy Quran from different surahs, and those verses are basically about truthfulness, honesty, and integrity, etc. Whereas the other document that's labeled as Code of Conduct, that has the rules and guidelines for the engineers. So basically we are like at this point we are concerned about the Code of Conduct as far as the PEC is concerned. Okay, anyways, so let's see what we discussed last time about ASCE Code of Ethics. If you read the ASCE Code of Ethics, at the beginning they have given a preamble, and in preamble they have certain fundamental principles. What those fundamental principles are? First one is that we always design safe, resilient, and sustainable infrastructure. We talked about these things in last class. Engineers treat other people with respect, dignity, and fairness without regard of personal identity. So we do not do any pick and choose, and we treat everybody with respect and dignity. The third fundamental principle is that engineers consider the current and future needs of the society. We discussed in detail last time that what are the possible current and future needs and how engineers propose projects that can satisfy those needs. And fourth one is a general one, that engineers use their knowledge and skills to improve the quality for humanity. When we practice our profession, there are different stakeholders that are involved in this practice, and the stakeholders, we discussed them in last class, and in the order of priority given by ASCE, the first stakeholder is our society, second is natural and built environment, third is profession, fourth is clients and employers, and then peers. And ASCE has given the responsibilities of engineers towards all these stakeholders in detail. And I think in our last class, we completed our discussion about the society, So let's quickly see what are the responsibilities of engineers towards the society. First one is that we always make sure to protect the health, safety, and welfare of the public. So we design safe structures that can guarantee the public safety. Second one is a general one, enhance the quality of life for humanity. Third one is that we always give our opinion truthfully and when it is founded on adequate knowledge. So we do not give our opinion for in any case if we are not 100% sure or if we do not know the fundamentals of related to that problem. We have zero tolerance to bribery and fraud, and engineers should have uh, a sense of service towards the society. This respectful and dignified attitude, we never discriminate or harass anybody. If there are any diverse needs of the community in the projects that we are doing, we always respect that, and we always try to make sure that our projects incorporate the emerging technology. So whenever uh, we are involved in such a projects that need to have latest technology in order to satisfy the demands, then we always ensure that. And if there is any misconduct, we report it to the appropriate authorities. Next is our contribution or our responsibilities towards natural and built environment. I think that we stopped at the role of society or our responsibilities towards the society. What do you guys think? Anybody? क्या हमने last time natural and built environment discuss किया था? जी. Did we discuss natural and built environment last time? CR, are you there?
Yes, sir. Sir, I think not discussed.
Discuss नहीं किया था हमने. चलो ठीक है.
Sir, we discussed the first point only about sustainable development.
अच्छा, हमने sustainable development की बात की थी. Okay, चलें. Let's start discussing from the beginning, the natural and built environment. Let's see our responsibilities towards the natural and built environment. And first requirement is that we adhere to the principles of sustainable development. I think we talked about sustainable development in our last class as well, but just to give you an idea again, that sustainable development, like there are several ways in which sustainable development can be defined. The basic idea is that we fulfill our needs in such a way that our future generations can also fulfill their needs. Means that while fulfilling our requirements, we do not damage the environment or ecosystem in such a way that our future generations or this earth does not remain a livable place for our future generations. That's the basic idea. And if for any activity you want to see that whether it is sustainable or not, you how to judge that, you can just see that whether you can repeat that activity for infinite amount of time without any uh, like uh, is that the possibility that you can repeat that for infinite amount of time? If yes, then that activity is sustainable. If not, then that activity is not sustainable, and we have to look for some alternatives, or we'll have to make certain changes in that process to make it sustainable. And there are several different ways in which civil engineers can contribute to sustainable development, and actually we are contributing already to it. And I think we discussed a few examples as well. Like for example, uh, we use concrete. Like concrete is used in huge amounts internationally, and the binding material in concrete is cement. Now, cement, the production of cement produces a large amount of carbon dioxide. So if it's producing large amount of carbon dioxide, it means it is harmfully affecting the environment. So we cannot keep on producing cement in large quantities, otherwise the environment will be significantly damaged. So what civil engineers are doing, they are carrying out research to partially replace cement with some other waste materials. And the benefit of doing that is twofold. First, the demand of cement will be decreased a bit, and as a result, its production will be decreased. And secondly, we use certain waste materials as replacement cement with the waste material. So this is one example of our contribution towards sustainable development. Another example is that uh, as again, and it is again related to concrete, that if concrete is utilized in huge amount, it means we need like great amount of aggregates, right? We know that the largest portion of concrete is aggregate. So it means that we are depleting the resources of our aggregates. And we in Pakistan, we have huge amount of aggregates, but not all the countries in the world have huge amount of aggregates. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to uh, recycle these aggregates. That whenever any structure completes its life and that structure is demolished, then the concrete that we get from that structure, we recycle the aggregate in that concrete. We crush that old concrete and we get the aggregate out of it, and then we try to reuse those aggregates in certain applications. And this is again something that like our own department is doing research in this area. So we are trying to recycling the concrete aggregates. So this is second example. And there is another example of sustainable development, like our contribution towards a sustainable development. For example, the orange line train is passing exactly in front of our university, and it is also passing through some important historic places which United Nations has declared as heritage. Now, when this project was under construction, some people raised the question of excessive vibrations which will be generated because of the construction operation and then later on operation of the metro train. And they said that the historical buildings might get damaged and they might develop cracks because of these excessive vibrations. So what we did, like our department was part of that project, we installed sensors on these historical buildings and we monitored that how much vibrations are there and whether those vibrations are dangerous for the structures or not. So in that way, we ensured that the projects that we are constructing now, like currently, they do not negatively affect our already existing structures, whether they are historical or they are other important structures. So this was the third example how civil engineers can contribute to the sustainable development. And there are several more examples. So I hope now you guys are clear about this idea of sustainable development. So this is our first responsibility. Second responsibility is to consider a balance between societal, environmental, and economic impacts, along with opportunity for improvement in their work. So whenever we, let's say we try to contribute towards sustainable development, it has some economic impacts as well, because as I gave you the example of sensor technology, then these sensors are expensive, right? So this process has economic impacts as well. As civil engineers, whatever we are trying to do, we consider the impacts of our actions on the society, environment, and economy, and we try to mitigate if there are any adverse effects. We try to mitigate those effects. And next, we use resources wisely while minimizing resource depletion. So the example that I gave earlier regarding recycling of the aggregate, is an example for this case as well, that we try to minimize the resource depletion. We do not want to make progress in such a way that our resources deplete at a much higher rate, because that is again related to the sustainable development. If we do that, that development will not be sustainable. With this, our responsibilities towards the natural and built environment are completed. Anybody having any question about this? Any question about this, guys? Okay, I'm come back. Like I'm back on Teams. So if you have any question, please raise your hand. All right. If you do not have any question, then let's come back to our slides. All right. Next is our responsibilities towards our profession, because when we practice our profession, then depending upon the quality of our work, or depending upon uh, our practice, our profession is affected. Either we contribute towards our profession positively, or we cause, or we are a cause of defaming our profession. It all depends upon our actions. So let's see what are our responsibilities as a professional civil engineer. Okay, our first responsibility is to uphold the honor, integrity, and dignity of our profession. So if we practice our profession with honesty, and we develop our skills, and we practice our profession with competence, then we will be able to contribute towards our profession positively. But if we are not competent enough, then we will not be able to, or we will bring negative negative reputation to our profession, and that's not acceptable. Second is, we practice engineering in compliance with all legal requirements in jurisdiction of practice. So whenever we construct any project, there are certain legal requirements. For example, if you are constructing a highway or a bridge, let's say, then you have certain right of way, and you have to fit in your structure within that right of way. Okay, so that's one requirement that you should satisfy. If you are constructing any building, there might be some requirements related to the overall height of the building, let's say, especially in case of areas which are in the vicinity of airports. We have such restrictions, and in some other cases as well, we have restrictions on the overall height of the building. And if we talk about small projects like our houses, then depending upon our society, we have certain requirements regarding, let's say, leaving spaces on the back side of the house, or on the side, or on the front side. So there are, in every project, there are some legal requirements. And as an engineer, this is our responsibility to fulfill those legal requirements. Represent their professional qualification and experience truthfully. Now, this thing points out towards negative practice in our society, uh, but some people do in order to win the projects, or like because of unfair competition. They like a lot of times people misreport their qualifications and experience. They exaggerate their qualifications and they exaggerate their experience in order to just show that they are more competent, and the basic purpose is to win the contract, win the award, and that is wrong. We should always be honest while reporting our qualifications and experience. Reject practices of unfair competition. Basically, misreporting our qualifications are an example of unfair competition. And promote mentorship and knowledge sharing equitably with current and future engineers. So as civil engineers, as professional engineers, this is also our responsibility to make sure that we share our knowledge with our juniors, and if we are if young engineers are working under our supervision, we are supposed to mentor them. ASCE and other civil engineering organizations, they offer certain programs for mentorship and knowledge sharing. There was a program by ASCE that was particularly related to mentorship. I saw that program like a couple of years ago. I did not check it recently, but I would suggest you guys to explore that program. In that program, you can become a mentee of some senior engineer, and you will have a mentor, and he or she will guide you and share knowledge with you. And ASCE some other knowledge sharing programs as well. For example, they give you ASCE Smart Brief. I'm not sure if you guys have heard about that. Has anybody heard about ASCE Smart Brief? क्या आपने कभी सुना है ASCE Smart Brief के बारे में? Anybody? Okay, if you guys have not heard about this, now let me introduce that to you guys. Okay, just give me a moment. Okay, can you guys see like my inbox on your screen now, like my Gmail inbox? All right, so this is basically an email that I got probably 3 days ago. What ASC Smart Brief is, it's basically a brief newsletter that they send you on every working day of the week. So Monday to Friday, every day, they send you uh, uh, a brief newsletter, and in that newsletter, the basic purpose is to share the knowledge. For example, in this one, they have talked about, and they have uh, a lot of stories related to United States, some international stories, some uh, articles related to sustainable development, some related to the recent trends in technology, some job opportunities, internship opportunities, uh, and if there are any like landmark project, they provide introduction of that landmark project. Okay, so let me just show you this thing quickly. So they have, in this newsletter, they have talked about the hurricanes, coronavirus thing, uh, then some transportation infrastructure bill, and finding success using drones in construction. So this is kind of latest technology. Project Watch, so they have mentioned some recent projects in the United States, development in technology. So not all cities want shiny new transport modes. Okay, so they share miscellaneous topics related to civil engineering. This is something about Florida, and a couple of topics or articles on sustainability, and something related to research. They also share some images of iconic structures, and they have I remember they have a competition as well regarding pictures, and at the end they share a quotation. So this is a typical example of newsletter that ASC guys provide. Okay, so basically what I wanted to let you know is the knowledge sharing opportunities. ASC has created such opportunities, and I would suggest you guys to get register for this. And what you can do, you'll get an email daily. You might not be able to read all the emails, but every now and then you can just skim through the emails, and if you find anything interesting, you can read that article. So that will help you keeping updated regarding the recent development in civil engineering. So this was one example of knowledge sharing. And okay, let me now get out of this screen. And we have some local opportunities as well. For example, have you guys ever heard about about PSCE? Has anybody heard about PSCE, Pakistan Society of Civil Engineering? All right. We have at least one hand raised. Okay, Irtaza.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so Irtaza, आपने कहाँ सुना इसके बारे में?
Sir, Facebook.
Facebook पे आपने देखा? So, do you follow them?
Yes, sir. इनका पेज है Facebook पर.
इनका पेज है Facebook पे. Okay,
सर जो डॉक्टर सुहेल किबरिया साहब है, उनकी अक्सर आती रहती है उस पे पोस्ट, वो लेक्चर डिलीवर करते हैं रजिस्टर्ड इंजीनियर्स.
Right. Okay, that's right. So PSC is Pakistan Society of Civil Engineering, and it has been developed on similar lines of as that of American Society of Civil Engineers. So on that platform, civil engineers, they share knowledge as it's as I mentioned that engineer Suhail Kibriya from NESPAC, he often delivers lecture on that, and I think they have lecture. They have a series of lectures, and every month they have a seminar, and that's a good platform. And I would suggest you guys to join Pakistan Society of Civil Engineers, because that will again help you in keeping updated about the recent development in Pakistan. I'm not sure if they offer free membership for the students, but you can check that. Otherwise, I think they have nominal fee for membership. And if you do not want to become a paid member, just simply follow them on Facebook or on WhatsApp. On YouTube. Whatever lecture they have on their platform, they later on upload that lecture on Facebook. So if you are not interested in getting a certificate and you just want to get the knowledge, you can watch those lectures later on at the time of your convenience. And I have watched some of their lectures, and those are like good lectures, because most of the time they invite senior people, very senior people from the industry, so that gives you a good idea about that particular topic. So Pakistan Society of Civil Engineers, that's another platform for knowledge sharing. So as an engineer, this is our responsibility. Now you guys are currently student, but later on when you will become professional, just keep this thing in your mind, that try to mentor and coach your juniors. Educate the public on the role of civil engineering in society. So this is again one of our responsibilities, that we educate the public, and because as professionals, if we educate the public and if we highlight the importance and the needs of civil engineering in the society, basically we are not only contributing to the profession, but it is in our own benefit as well, because we are civil engineers, and if our profession kind of its ranking goes up, then it is in our own interest. Continue professional development to enhance their technical and non-technical competencies. Okay, let me get out of this presentation. All right, guys, have you ever heard about CPD? CPD, ये term सुनी है आपने कभी? Has any one of you heard about CPD? Okay, no. All right, so let me introduce this to you. CPD is continuous professional development, and when you guys will graduate, you will register with PEC. At the beginning, they will, on the basis of your undergraduate degree, they will give you registration of Pakistan Engineering Council. but later on, like after 5 years, you will have to appear in an exam to become professional engineer, and at that time they will ask you about CPD points. So what ASCE and the PEC has done, basically PEC has got this idea from ASCE that they have assigned certain continuous professional development points to certain activities. Like if you acquire a master's degree afterwards, it has certain points. PhD has certain points. If you attend certain seminars, for example, these the lectures that I was talking about related to ASCE, the PSCE, those lectures have CPD points as well, probably 1 point, right? So you attend the lecture, you pay the fee, you attend the lecture, and you get a certificate, and you get 1 CPD point as well. So during your professional life, at the beginning especially, you will have to collect those CPD points, because when you will become professional engineer, or when you will apply to get the title of professional engineer, you will be asked to show that how many CPD points you have gathered, and they have a certain minimum number of CPD points that you have to have in order to get the title of professional engineers. And even after getting that title, in order to maintain that title, you will have to keep on collecting those points. The basic purpose is that engineers keep themselves up to date with the recent trend in civil engineering and in technology. Yeah, so that's why this CPD concept is launched. ASCE has this program, PECE has this program of collecting the CPD points. So when you will become professionals, you will have to do that, and that will result in enhancement in your technical and non-technical competencies. All right, next, let's move to our responsibilities to our next stakeholder, which is client and employer. Now, when we are practicing our profession, there are 1,000 different ways in which our clients and our employers get affected by our actions. So if we are doing a job in any engineering organization, means we are working for an employer. If we are running in our own business, we work for our client. And let's see what are our responsibilities towards our clients and employers. First is act as faithful agents of their clients and employers with integrity and professionalism. So this is our responsibility to be a faithful agent, because in a lot of cases, like especially if we are working on some large project, our clients are not fully aware of all the requirements of the project, and it is our responsibility to educate our client and let our client know that what is in his benefit, right? So we should be faithful and truthful to our clients, and if we are working for an employer, then towards an employer. Make clear to clients and employers any real potential or perceived conflicts of interest. Now, in civil engineering practice, a lot of times we have or we experience conflict of interest. I think we briefly talked about conflict of interest earlier, and we will be talking about this in future as well. One example of conflict of interest is that if you are a lot of connections with the vendors or suppliers of the materials. Now, if you have the responsibility to purchase materials on the client's behalf, and it depends upon the nature of your agreement. So if you have, your agreement is that you will be buying material as well for the client. Now, sometimes what contractors do, they take commission from the vendors, and then they stick to those certain vendors, and in such process they compromise on the quality of the material now, and they insist on buying material for this conflict of interest, because in this case the conflict, the interest of your employer or your client is conflicting with your own interest. So if there is any such conflict of interest, it should be clearly stated and it should be avoided as far as possible. So this is one thing. Next is communicate in a timely manner to clients and employers any risk and limitations related to their work. So if you have, if the work that you are doing, if any risk is involved in that, or there are limitations, you must communicate that to your client. Present clearly and promptly the consequences of to clients and employers if their engineering judgment is overruled, where health, safety, and welfare of public may be endangered. So if we are working on a project, and let's say, now what happens is sometimes, let's say you are designer of the project and you have designed any structure. At times, contractors or the staff working at site during the execution, they make minor changes. And when I say minor changes, the changes that appear minor to them, but in all the cases, those changes might not actually be minor changes, and sometimes those changes have a great impact on the safety of the project. For example, if let's say for any if you are constructing a building and you change the connection detail of any joint of that building, now that may lead to great changes in the load distribution of that structure. And we have seen examples in the past where such minor looking changes led to the collapse of the structure. There was a project, I think it was in the United States, and in that project there was long steel rods, those which were supporting some platform, and those rods were designed as continuous rods by the designer. But when the contractor executed the project, he did not find such long continuous rods. So what he did, he provided joints in between, and those, I think, one or two joints, and that change appeared minor to the contractor, so he did not even ask the consultant, he just made that change. But later on, because of that discontinuity in the structure, the entire load distribution system changed, and that structure collapsed, and that led to several casualties. Okay, so the basic point is that whenever the engineering judgment is overruled by non-technical people, then that might lead to great consequences. And if we see any such issues in our projects, we are supposed to update our employer or client promptly. Okay, what next? Keep clients and employers identified proprietary information confidential. Okay, whenever we are working on any project, we get access to, like if you are constructing any project, then you are basically the one who is executing it, so you have access to the entire project. And in most of the cases, people do not want to public their personal information, even if it's not a sensitive structure. Even if it's your house, let's say, you don't want to publicly provide all the details or about all the maps of your house. And this thing becomes more critical when you are working on a project which is of national importance. Let's say you are working on a nuclear power plant, or you are working on an ordnance factory, or any other important facility which may be, let's say, related to defense. So as an engineer, you have access to all that information. Now it is your responsibility to make sure that you do not disclose that information. And in addition to the details about the project, we also have some financial details as well. Let's say you are, like in our part of the world, we are not much used to of using credit cards, but internationally credit cards are used very, very frequently. So if you are working in an organization, there are transactions being being done through credit cards, so you have that credit card information as well. So if you leak that information, that may lead to frauds, financial frauds. So whatever information you have related to any project, whether it's technical or it's financial, it is your responsibility to keep that information confidential. Next is perform services only in areas of their competence. This thing again points out to uh, one of the malpractices in our society. A lot of times people uh, work in the areas which is not the area of their competence, and that leads to loss in the project. So as a professional engineer, we must always stick to the area of our expertise, and if we want to work in another area, we must first try to first develop the expertise in that area and then move to that one. And approve, sign or seal only work products that have been prepared or reviewed by them or under their responsible charge. This again points to one of our malpractices, that when you guys will become professionals and working as an engineer, you will realize uh, when you are only a registered engineer, you cannot sign drawings. But when you become professional engineers, and you need some professional engineer to sign their drawings. So what people do, sometimes they pay the professional engineer a little bit, and they ask the professional engineer that, okay, we will design the project and then you just sign that project. So ASCE says that that practice is unethical. You should only sign or seal those projects which are actually carried out either by you or under your supervision. Uh, we have certain responsibilities towards our peers as well. Let's see what those responsibilities are. And yes, one more thing about the last point. When you guys will become engineers, and you will have the title of registered engineers, uh, you might be contacted by some people who will ask you to sell uh, your PC registration number to them. They might ask about a one-time payment for that, and then what they want is they want to use your PEC number to get their engineering company registered. But that is also an unethical practice, and we are not supposed to do that. Peers. So now, who are the peers? Peers are the people who are of our cadre and they are working with us. For example, in your case, your class fellows are your peers. So the people that we are working with, and they are almost at the same level of their career. They are our peers. And let's see what are our responsibilities towards our peers. First responsibility is that we only take credit of the professional work that we have personally completed. There is a term in English that is credit hog. So don't be a credit hogger. Credit hogger is a person who takes credit of somebody else's work, and that is definitely an unacceptable thing. So we should only take credit of our own work, and we see such things not only in our academic life, not only in our professional life, but in our academic life as well. You guys might have experienced that. Sometimes we work in the form of groups, and there are few people who do not contribute to the work, but when it's a time to take the credit, you find them exactly on the front. That they portray that as if they have done the entire work. So such people are credit hoggers, and don't be a credit hog. Provide attribution for work of others. It means that do not take anybody else's work's credit. If you have to include anybody else's work in your work, properly cite that work, properly give the reference of that work, so that their work is acknowledged. Foster health and safety in the workplace. We have talked about these things when we talked about the work ethics, right? So I won't repeat that again here. Promote and exhibit inclusive, equitable, and ethical behavior in all engagements with colleagues. So we should have a fair engagement or fair relationship with our colleagues. Like there should be no discrimination or harassment. And by inclusive, we mean that we should try to work together, and we should try to include people instead of excluding them. So basically it's related to teamwork, developing effective teams, and act with honesty and fairness on collaborative work efforts. So whenever we are working in the form of groups, we are supposed to collaborate with honesty and try to develop a good working environment in our team. Encourage and enable education and development of the engineers, and this thing is again related to the continuous professional development. So whenever we are working together, we should try to educate our peers. If let's say one of the person is good in engineering, in structural design, and the other person is, let's say, good in execution of the project, then they should keep on sharing the knowledge with each other, so that everybody grows and become an effective member of the profession. Supervise equitably and respectfully. Whenever we get a chance to supervise people, we should supervise them in a respectful manner. Sometimes we as supervisors become rude and disrespectful, but that is something that's discouraged. Comment only in a professional manner on the work, professional reputation, and personal character for the engineer. So whenever we are working professionally, uh, our focus should be on the professional work. Some people who do not have good work ethic, they bring personal stuff into the professional stuff, and if they are commenting on the professional work, they bring other factors like uh, color, race, religion, nationality, or gender, personality. They bring these things into the discussion. But as a good professional, we should always stick to the professional work, and we should comment on that in a professional manner. If there are any violations, report to ASCE. As this code is published by ASCE, that is why they have mentioned ASCE. In our case, we are supposed to report it to PEC. Okay, so this completes our discussion about the code of ethics from ASCE. This PEC one, I'll just leave it to you guys, and you guys will read it by yourself. And if you guys have any questions, we can talk about those in our next class. Okay. So with this, our today's discussion is concluded. Do you guys have any question? If you have any question, please raise your hand. I have got out of the PowerPoint and I am on my Teams now. So if you have any question, please raise your hand. Any question, guys? All right. Meanwhile, I can take your attendance.